Aloha and good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, October 16th, 2025, and the time is now 9:04 a.m. Will the Committee on Zoning and Planning meeting please come to order? I would like to welcome committee members Okimoto, Tupola, and thank you, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam, for being here. I understand Vice Chair Waters and Councilmember Cordero will be coming in shortly. Although remote verbal testimony is being permitted, this is a regular in-person meeting and not a remote meeting by interactive conference technology under HRS Section 92-3.7. Therefore, the meeting will continue notwithstanding loss of audio-visual communication with remote testifiers or loss of the public broadcast of the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide verbal testimony on all items on the agenda when each item is taken up in two ways: in person in the council chamber and remotely via video conference or phone. Before testifying, each person shall state their name for the record. Each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and will be limited to a 1-minute presentation per item. All persons who registered to testify in person will be called upon first. Persons who did not register will be given an opportunity to offer testimony after the registered testifiers. Once in-person testimony has concluded, I will proceed to the remote testifiers. When I call your name or the last 3 digits of your phone number, please follow the prompts to unmute. As both English and Hawaiian are official languages of the state of Hawaii, pursuant to Article 15, Section 4 of the Hawaii State Constitution and Section 113 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes, members of the public may testify in either language. For verbal testimonies offered in Olelo, Hawaii, additional time as may be necessary will be allowed for the testifier to provide an English translation of their testimony. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off or silence all cell phones for the duration of this meeting. Thank you. Moving to agenda item number 1, Bill 62, 2025, CD1. This bill makes certain amendments to RH Section 25-570-3 as enacted by Ordinance 25-2 relating to bed and breakfast home and transit vacation unit standards and requirements, which were initially made under Ordinance 24-14, but inadvertently omitted under Ordinance 25-2. If you recall, Ordinance 25-2 repealed and replaced Land Use Ordinance Article 5 relating to land use regulations. Members note that the CD1 version of the bill replaced black and white figures 21-5.1, 21-5.2, 21-5.3, and 21-5.4 with higher resolution color versions that appear in Ordinance 25-2. As previously discussed, the title and purpose clause of the bill are very narrow, so the only amendments that can be made in the bill are the amendments made in Ordinance 24-14. Other amendments to the bed and breakfast home and transit vacation unit provisions would need to be taken up in a separate bill. Before I call up the administration, I would like to take public testimony. Proceeding first with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Is there anyone else in the council chamber who would like to testify on this item? Please come forward to the podium and begin by stating your name. Seeing none, proceeding on with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers for this item?
Chair, we have one standing by.
We have Kelly Lee. Good morning. Please proceed.
Good morning.
Please proceed.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. I'm Kelly Lee with OSTRA. We support this bill as it improves the efficiency of registration, the process started by Ordinance 24-14. The current law requires a full registration and a new $1,000 fee every time the operator or point of contact changes, even when the owner stays the same. This is critical because the owner is the one legally responsible for maintaining a valid registration. Forcing a full re-registration for a simple personnel change imposes unnecessary costs on compliant owners and creates duplicate work for city staff, all without improving enforcement. We respectfully ask that you remove change in operator as a trigger for full registration. Mahalo for your time today.
Kelly, thank you so much for your testimony. As I previously stated, this bill is currently drafted as narrowly crafted for the purpose for consideration today. I did say that we will take into consideration your and others' testimonies And I believe that you have been in contact with DPP, and when DPP comes up, I will be asking for an explanation. If there are any modifications to the provision that you're talking about, it would be in a separate bill. But I do understand that the cost to administer it is costly. So thank you so much. Clerk, is there anyone else standing by remotely?
Chair, there are none.
For the administration, we have Don Takeuchi Apuna, Director of Planning and Permitting.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. We are in support of the current CD1 draft. Thank you.
As a follow-up to what I just commented on relating to the testifier, could you please explain the DPP cost or concerns over the proposed recommendation to not charge an exorbitant fee of $1,000 if you change the operator for managing the short-term rental?
Thank you, Chair. The $1,000 that's currently charged for application and renewal, it goes to the administrative cost of that registration. So reviewing different reports and registrations, et cetera. So when there's a new operator, it's the same exact process. So the same fee of $1,000 should apply to a new operator.
Is there any way to decrease it to $500?
I think that would be unfair for any new owner. You know, it's the same exact process that we're using, and so $500 wouldn't really make sense for a new operator.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions for the director? Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you. Aloha, Director. I think the question is not necessarily about a new operator, but if there is management changes. So right now in Bill 62, Section 2CY, page 15, there's one line that says, or any change in the operator. I think what they're asking about is not if there's like new people, but if there is like, say for example, someone resigns and now there's somebody else that's over the company, but it's the same company running it. Right now it says, or any change in the operator. So would you be amenable to language that just says, or any change with a new operator or something? Because it's like 5 words. And I hear what they're saying, which is that you can't always secure that the same management is gonna stay into eternity with managing certain parcels. So what is your thoughts on that?
From what I understand, the new operators, their names or their titles are part of the new paperwork. So it does require a relook at all those things. But I can go back to staff and just confirm that if that's the case.
I hear you. I think I hear both sides. I hear what you're saying, which is like if there is a new operator, we have to like do the due diligence, know who they are. Is this a new company? Have we worked with them? And I hear their side, which is if there is a personnel shift, which is I think a different thing, but maybe you guys can decide what that looks like. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilmember DeSantis-Town.
Thank you. We've discussed, I guess, over the past couple months, some of the challenges in gathering data about vacation rentals and the concerns that have been expressed about, privacy and having the platforms provide this sort of data. Based on this potentially new, registration requirement, would we as the council or the public be able to get some of that registration information so we can assess, to Councilmember Tupola's point, are there vacation rentals that are owned by multiple, or does a single person own multiple vacation rentals around this island? Or is it truly, as many of the proponents have said, just a grandma trying to meet her mortgage?
That's a good question. We can definitely get you that information. And we do know there's multiple, an owner that has multiple operations, so we can provide that. And I think that will give you a good picture of what's going on.
Members, if there are no other questions or discussion, I will be making my recommendation. Chair recommends that Bill 62, 2025, CD1 be reported out for passage on 3rd reading. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving to agenda item number 2 for action, Bill 48, 2025. This bill would establish a portion of Chaplain Lane between Fort Street Mall and Bethel Street as a pedestrian mall close to vehicular traffic with certain exceptions, and authorize the Department of Transportation Services to control and coordinate the use of the newly established Chaplain Lane Mall. Chaplain Lane currently is a city roadway that runs from 4th Street Mall to Nu'uano Avenue. I will now defer to the introducer of the bill, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam, for an explanation.
Thank you. As you mentioned, Chair, this is a very small street downtown. The section that would be converted to a pedestrian mall is about 230 feet, and it's very, very narrow. In fact, it's so narrow to the point where you really can't drive a car down the road. It's basically used for moped parking, as well as by some of the adjacent businesses. Converting it to a pedestrian mall would make it very similar to 4th Street Mall and would also allow the adjacent businesses to do things like sidewalk dining, as well as help to clean up the neighborhood.
Thank you so much. Before I call up the administration, I would like to take public testimony. Proceeding first with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Is there anyone else in the chamber who would like to testify on this item? Seeing none, proceeding on with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
For the administration, do we have someone from the Department of Transportation Services here? If not, Director Apuna, do you have any comments on this bill?
No comments. I think the administration is supportive of it, though. Thank you.
Members, are there any questions for the director? Seeing no questions, are there any discussions before I make my recommendation? Seeing none, the chair recommends that Bill 48, 2025 be reported out for passage on second reading and scheduling of a public hearing. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving to agenda item number 3 for action, Resolution 25-253. This resolution grants a special management area major permit to Kai Kraut to allow for the demolition of an existing single-unit dwelling, the construction of a new 3-story single-unit dwelling with 3 open lanais, 3 covered lanais, ground-level parking to accommodate 7 vehicles, and swimming pool, and installation of an individual wastewater system on an approximately 7,364 square foot non-shoreline lot, Zone R5 Residential District, located at 66163 Walikanahele Road in Haleiwa and identified as tax map key 66005-035. Members, we have posted on the agenda a CD1 version of the resolution. For your information, a summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. The project site is not a shoreline zoning lot, but requires a special management area major permit because improvements are valued at more than $500,000, and the project site is located within flood zone VE, which is the coastal high hazard zone and requires compliance with the special flood hazard requirements of ROH Chapter 21A. The dwelling's habitable space will be elevated approximately 15 feet above mean sea level. The height limit in the underlying R5 residential district is 25 feet. Under the land ordinance, the highest point of a structure may exceed the maximum height by no more than 5 feet if required for the dwelling's lowest habitable floor to be elevated at or above the base flood elevation level. The project has a height limit of 30 feet. The project's conceptual plans do not appear to comply with land use ordinance development standards and requirements for the R5 residential district. Condition B of the proposed CD1 requires the applicant to submit to the department revised project plans that first, comply with the maximum height limit. The project's rooftop safety railings may not exceed the required height limit by more than 42 inches. Number 2, comply with height setback requirements. The project's rooftop safety railings may not encroach into the required height setback. Number 3, correct the project's floor area ratio calculation to include the ground floor storage and utility area, which may not exceed the maximum allowable FAR of 0.7. 4, comply with 11-foot rear and side yard requirements if the project's density exceeds a FAR of 0.6. The project's rooftop safety railings may not encroach into the required yard setback and the project's dwelling eaves may not encroach into the required yard setback by more than 30 inches. In addition, only one single unit dwelling is allowed on the project site, but the project dwelling is designed to function as or easily be converted into two separate dwellings. There are essentially two separate north and south wings with two separate slab foundations, two separate ground level parking areas, and two separate living areas on the second and third levels. To ensure that the dwelling will be occupied and function as a single unit dwelling, Condition B5, the proposed CD1, also requires that the project's two separate wings be consolidated by adding substantial interior connections between the north and south wings on the second and third levels. Furthermore, the project's impervious surface coverage is 5,523 square feet, which is equal to 75% of the zoning lot and includes areas above the individual wastewater systems, leaching field, and septic tank. Larger areas of pervious surfaces are required to absorb excess stormwater. Condition B6 of the proposed CD1 further requires that the maximum amount of impervious area on the project site be reduced from 75% to 50% of the project zoning lot, which may be achieved by using pervious surface material when paving the areas above the project's leaching field and septic tank, or leaving those areas in a natural pervious state. Approximately 40% of the project site at the northeastern boundary is anticipated to be impacted by 3.2 feet of sea level rise by the year 2100, and a portion of the project dwelling is within the 3.2 foot sea level rise exposure area. The project site is not a shoreline zoning lot and is located approximately 990 feet mauka of the shoreline. Condition C of the proposed CD1 requires the applicant to acknowledge and take responsibility for the cleanup and restoration of the project site in the event of coastal hazard-related loss of property. The existing dwelling is over 50 years old, but is not listed on or nominated for the Hawaii or National Register of Historic Places, so no historic review is required for the demolition of the building. No archaeological sites have been previously identified within the vicinity of the project site, and the site consists of Mamala Kabli silty clay loam, which is not typically associated with high archaeological sensitivity. However, another special management area major permit that is being considered today under Resolution 25-254 is in the vicinity of the project site and has very similar geological characteristics. For that project, the State Historic Preservation Division indicated that while no archaeological or historic resources were previously identified in the project area, there was no data to support the finding that no archaeological or historical resources exist on the site, and recommended the preparation of an archaeological inventory survey with subsurface testing. It is not clear why the division suggested a survey for that project and not this project. An archaeological inventory service is an expensive and complex process involving testing trenches and is typically conducted when there is a likelihood that archaeological or historic resources may exist on the site. In contrast, an archaeological monitoring plan involves monitoring during project construction and may be more appropriate when there is a less likelihood that archaeological or historic resources will be discovered on the site. For purposes of treating similar situated projects in the same way, and as recommended by the Department of Planning and Permitting, Condition E of the proposed CD1 includes conditions requiring the applicant submit to the department a copy of the division's written acceptance of the project's archaeological monitoring plan, and to implement all mitigation protocols approved or otherwise required by the division. The project proposes to excavate 221.223 cubic yards of soil material, which will be used as infill across the project site, while no importation of soil or structural fill material is proposed, since construction equipment may transfer invasive pathogens, pests, or plants. The proposed CD1 includes Condition G, which requires the applicant to comply with certain protocols to minimize the spread of invasive species. I wanted to welcome Vice Chair Waters and Councilmember Cordero to the hearing. Joining us in the council chamber is Mark Howland from Well Environmental Services, who will be providing a brief presentation. For your information, the presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 541-2025. And Mr. Howland, since I just explained a very lengthy process of the conditions, if you could abbreviate your presentation, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair, members. This is 66-163 Wale Kahana Healy Road in Haleiwa. This is the locus of the property. It's on the side street. The 2 doors over is the Moody property that you approved last year. Its proposed action is construction of a 5-bedroom, 6-bath, single-family home with new pool, replacing the existing 3-bedroom, 1-bath, single-family dwelling that's in pretty rough shape. It's for private residential use. The Krauts own a hot contract as septic inspectors, and so they work locally here. This is the planned project. We've explained to the architect that the changes that the council requires need to be put in place. They've already agreed not to pave the wastewater system, and they've lined it with geocells with pea stone for permeability. This is site photos of the site. As you can see, it's pretty open lot. There's only one mango tree in the back, and that's the locations. As the chair mentioned, it's Malama, mostly Malama silty clay soils. There's a little corner of Haleiwa silty clay soils. It's impacted by the 3.2 sea level rise. The red balloon is the portions, mostly the frontage and a little bit of the back rear. Most of Haleiwa is impacted this way. There are no coastal indicators near this work area. There is in the beach park, the vegetation line and a 3.2 coastal erosion line. Has most of oil shorelines category 4, affects most of this property. It lies in a greater than 6-foot surge impact zone. They are structurally constructed to resist hurricane impact. There's no critical habitat on the site. There's proposed critical habitat along the shoreline, which is for the monk seals and sea turtles. This is the plot plan of the property. Highlighted in yellow is the location of the site. And has a series of conditions that with the help of this council's zoning and planning committee, we've put the conditions in the application for immediate halt of construction if any artifacts are notified. And we have advised them to do an archaeological monitoring plan. Wildlife concerns, again, immediate construction halt if any endangered species come onto the site. Dark sky provisions for lighting, SMA acknowledgements, releasing liability to the city and county of Honolulu, and clean soil provisions. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer. Thank you.
Members, are there any questions for Mr. Howland? If not, I'm going to, before I call up the administration, I would like to take public testimony, proceeding first with in-person testimony in the chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Is there anyone else in the council chamber who would like to testify? Seeing none, proceeding with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers for this item?
Chair, we have one standing by.
Raquel Achu, good morning. Yes, you have to unmute.
Sorry, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Aloha Chair, committee members, thank you. Raquel Achu, Wailua Moku, I am testifying on an individual capacity. I am vice chair of the North Shore Neighborhood Board, but again, as my individual self. This project did not come in front of the board. I believe there was conversation or communication between DPP and our chair, and we were in recess. It didn't really accommodate time. I do understand and know this property and this neighborhood. This project, in my opinion, screams vacation rental. Everybody says it's for their family. But this is a very dense neighborhood. And to Mr. Howland's reference of the Moody property last year, they were not even allowed to place cement driveway. They had to have a permeable space for their driveway. So my concern with that was now we're looking at a pool for this property. And like I said, it's very dense and it's a very shallow water table. Is this an in-ground pool? And are the draining issues of that pool being acknowledged or reviewed? If they have to drain the pool, where is that water going? And obviously, the pool in the time where we have a severe drought is concerning. But more so, this matching with the other property in Resolution 254, there's always inconsistencies in the presentation. In 254, it lists the Haro family as the project, but it lists this property owner as the applicant. So I'm very concerned with the inconsistencies in information and how these issues will be acknowledged. 7 cars, 3 lanais, 2 houses. It's not consistent. So I appreciate your consideration. Mahalo.
Thank you, Raquel. And during the discussion purposes, we will probably bring up Mr. Howland again. But I do have a question to clarify whether or not did the agent at least request the neighborhood board to give a presentation?
Yes, he did reach out to our chair. He did request our review. And at that time, we were also in recess, so the timing and the wasn't accommodating.
Okay, I just want to make sure that occurred.
Yeah.
And that just the law requires that the agent or the applicant go and notify the boards so that you have an opportunity. Okay, thank you so much.
That.
Members, are there any questions for the testifier? If not, we're going to bring up the department.
Thank you, Chair. We're supportive of the proposed CD1 for this project.
I have a question before I open up to other members. Comparatively to all of the other SMAs that we've considered before this committee, this one seems to have a lot of conditions, and they're not small conditions. So my question, I guess, is do you have any advice for any applicant or the agent on how they could have avoided all of these conditions? Is there something throughout the process prior to submitting the application to DPP that they could have done better? Because this is a lot of stringent conditions, and I don't know if the owner even knew.
Yeah, I think it's important that applicants do their due diligence in really understanding the project and working with qualified professionals to make sure that that everything's in line and in conformance with the various laws. So I think that's important for all types of applications that come through, but probably for this one as well.
Thank you. Members, do we have any questions? Do you have any questions? Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, Chair. Director, my question is in relation to one of the conditions relating to the dense clays and shallow foundations. Was that a condition that was placed by the department as a request to the applicant?
I'm sorry, which condition was that?
The dense clay shallow foundations?
Dense clay shallow engagement.
Or is that what they were planning to utilize?
I'm gonna check with my staff.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. We believe that was part of the council's language that was added.
I see. And then as for such condition, would that require a geotechnical investigation to occur prior to any construction or prior to any of the other steps moving forward?
I believe so, yes.
And how is that reported on?
Okay, you know what, we're not sure,
Oh,
so
okay.
we could find out.
Okay, thank you, Director.
Sorry about that.
And I guess in addition to that, how is that normally reported back to, how does the applicant normally report that back to DPP and I guess back to the committee as well, or community as well?
I mean, it wouldn't necessarily come back to the council, but through the building permit process, that would go through our site development division. And so it would be part of that process.
Okay, thank you very much. I accidentally said committee, but I meant community. But so there would be then for them to keep in check the building permit status then, yeah?
Yeah, that would be.
Okay, I
appropriate.
understand. Thank you, Director, and thank you, Chair.
Members, any other questions? I did want to note for the members that the Department of Housing and Land Management, in a letter dated to myself and the members on October 14th, submitted a letter asking, it was a testimony, that the current 2-year extension be decreased to 1 year. And I wanted to call up the director to have a discussion on this. And I also recommend in the future for any agency that is non-DPP that has a matter before this committee, if they are going to be sending something of this nature that changes the underlying resolution, that I would appreciate a more robust discussion and not simply sending a letter like this. And the reason it's important is that when they are undertaking due diligence efforts for acquisition, it's a very lengthy process. And the history of this SMA is that we have extended it repeatedly. And so there are concerns that a 1-year extension may be insufficient time. So my question to you is, because I talked to you guys on Monday, and you had stated that you wanted the greatest flexibility, so we don't have to be seeing this resolution again. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We're talking about the Pupukea one. Okay, sorry. Okay. Any other questions on this? Any other questions on this? If not, we're going to move forward. Sorry that you guys, I confused this with the Pupukea one. Since I saw Councilmember Wire in the committee, threw me off a little bit. Okay, so if there's no further discussion on this, the chair recommends that Resolution 25-253 be amended to the posted CD1. Unless anybody wants to talk about short-term rentals with the agent, if there are no questions on that, because you stated that it's going to be homeowners, right? If there is no further discussion or any objections or reservations, the resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 25-253 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving to agenda item number 4, for action, Resolution 25-254. This resolution grants a special management area major permit to Jonathan Hero to allow for the construction of a new 3-story single-unit dwelling with covered lanais and ground-level parking to accommodate 6 vehicles, installation of an individual wastewater system, and to account for a previously constructed concrete masonry unit wall along the northwest and east property boundaries on an approximately 8,335 square foot non-shoreline zone R5 residential district located 66-348 Haleiwa Road in Haleiwa and identified as tax map key 66008019. We have posted on the agenda a CD1 version of the resolution, which I submitted. For your information, a summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. The project site is not a shoreline zoning lot, but requires a special management area major permit because project improvements are valued at more than $500,000, and the site is located within flood zone VE, which is the coastal high hazard zone, and requires compliance with special flood hazard requirements of ROH Chapter 21A. The dwelling's habitable space will be elevated approximately 15 feet above mean sea level. The height limit in the underlying district is 25 feet. Under the land use ordinance, the highest point of a structure may exceed the maximum height by no more than 5 feet if required for the dwelling's lowest habitable floor to be elevated at or above the base flood elevation level. The project has a height level limit of 30 feet. The entire project site is anticipated to be impacted by 3.2 feet of sea level rise by the year 2100, and the project dwelling is within the 3.2 foot sea level rise exposure area. The project site is not a shoreline lot, is located approximately 500 feet Mauka of the shoreline, and the dwelling could not reasonably be moved further Mauka. Condition B2 of the proposed CD1 requires the applicant to acknowledge and take responsibility for the cleanup and restoration of the project site in the event of coastal hazard-related loss of property. The concrete masonry unit wall on the project site along the northwest and east property boundaries were built without a building permit. A notice of violation was issued in December 2023, which required the applicant to obtain a building permit by June 2024. A building permit will not be issued until this SMA permit is approved, so this resolution is part of the action required for the applicant to resolve the notice of violation and obtain a building permit for the wall. In a letter dated July 25th, 2025, the State Historic Preservation Division indicated that while no archaeological or historic resources were previously identified in the vicinity of the project, there was no data to support the finding that no archaeological or historic resource exists on the site, and recommended the preparation of an archaeological inventory survey with subsurface testing for the project site. As previously mentioned, the division did not recommend a survey for the project associated with Resolution 25-253, which is in the vicinity of the project site and has very similar geological characteristics. For purposes of treating similarly situated projects in the same way. Condition D of the proposed CD1 includes conditions requiring the applicant submit to the department a copy of the division's written acceptance of the project's archaeological monitoring plan and to implement all mitigation protocols approved or otherwise required by the division. The project involves the disturbance of approximately 153 cubic yards of soil material for site preparation and construction activities, and the project's post and pier foundation requires structural fill material, but also structure fill material will be sourced on site. While no importation of soil or structured fill material is proposed, since construction equipment may transfer invasive pathogens, pests, or plants, their proposed CD1 includes condition F, which requires the applicant to comply with certain protocols to minimize the spread of invasive species. Joining us in the chamber is Mark Howland from Well Environmental Services, who will be providing a brief presentation. For your information, the presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 542-2025. Is there anybody?
Thank you, Chair, members. This is Resolution 25-254, CD1, 66348 Haleiwa Road in Haleiwa. This is the locus. It's about 5-6 lots away from the previous resolution. The Trey Kraut is the septic engineer agent for the Department of Health for this project as well. This is no erosion area because it's an inland lot. It's approximately 8,735 square feet. The shoreline is not nearby. It's construction of a four-bedroom, three-bath, single-family dwelling with a carport. The only impervious areas would be the pilings supporting the house. Underneath the carport would be gravel or pea stone. It's over 500,000, so it's an SMA major. It's been distributed to interested parties. This is the planned project, how it looked. Currently, Mr. Haro is the owner of True Green Solar in Waiwa and lives there, and he's moving. His wife redesigned his house several times, and they're moving here full-time. Currently, the site hosts a workshop for his solar business. As you can see, the carport is just the little squares of the foundation that will covering the stairs, create an impervious surface. These are current site photos of the workshop and the lawn areas and the rock wall out front. He did pay the double NOV filing fee structures. Again, it's the Malama silty clays on all of this site. Again, it's impacted almost totally by the 3.2 sea level rise. Actually, it's all impacted by it. There's no coastal erosion indicators. This is an unstudied area. However, there is a vegetation coastal erosion line along the shoreline. Hurricane surge, as Mosa Haleiwa, Category 4 affects everybody, it's affected as well. They've been structurally designed to impact. Critical habitat, there's nothing on the site. Again, there's proposed critical habitat for the monk seal and the green sea hornose. This is the plot plan of the site and its locus. And again, those series of conditions that we agreed to, we had actually proposed on both projects shallow foundations, and we had recommended that to the architect. And we thank DPP for the help they gave us on both those projects. So if you have any questions, I'll gladly answer them. Thank you.
Members, are there any questions for Mr. Howland? Before I call up the administration, I would like to take public testimony, proceeding first with in-person testimony. Do we have any in-person testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Is there anyone else in the chamber who would like to testify? Seeing none, is there anyone else proceeding with remote testimony? Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
For the department, we have Don Takeuchi Apuna.
Thank you, Chair. We are supportive of the proposed CD1 and are available for any questions.
Members, are there any questions? Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, Chair. I do have a question as a follow-up to Councilmember Kiaʻāina's bringing up of the Department of Housing and Land Management's request for a one-year extension for the SMA. What would the difference be, and how does DPP feel about that position?
Councilmember
yeah.
Cordero, I was mistaken on the SMA.
Oh, yeah.
At the appropriate time, that will be for agenda item.
Okay, I
Number
stand
7,
corrected, and I will set that
Councilmember
question.
Wire came in, and Raquel Achu testified, and so I got confused, and I see him over there talking to DPP because we're going to have a robust discussion.
Okay.
So at the appropriate
I
time.
stand corrected, and I'll
No,
allow
but
you
we're
to
going to
lead
but
that.
Thank you. So at least, so it's 2 times already, but because all of these SMAs are in the same vicinity, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, if there are no further discussion, the chair recommends that Resolution 25-254 be amended to the posted CD1. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 25-254 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving to agenda item number 5. For action, Resolution 25-260. This resolution grants a special management major permit to Jennifer Y.S. Kim Trust to allow for the construction of a new 2-story single dwelling unit with lanai, covered decks, and 2 attached 2-car garages, swimming pool and spa, outboard barbecue, freestanding perimeter wall, 6 feet in height, auto court with 4 vehicle parking spaces, and 1 open parking space next to the pool on a 23,195 square foot non-shoreline zone lot, zoned R5 residential district, located at 4705 Kahala Avenue in Wailai, Kahala, and identified as tax map key 35005-004. We have posted on the agenda a CD1 version of the resolution, which I submitted for your information. A summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. The open automobile parking space next to the pool will be accessed from an adjacent parcel, identified as tax map key 35005-076, which is owned by the Kamehameha Schools and leased by the city. The applicant has not confirmed access rights over parcel 76. Condition B of the proposed CD1 provides that prior to the issuance of a building permit for the project, the applicant is required to submit to the department a deed, easement, or other legal document showing access rights on, over, and across parcel 76. The project site is not a shoreline zoning lot, but the project exceeds 7,500 square feet of floor area, and project improvements are valued at more than $500,000, so the project requires a special management area major permit. The project site is not anticipated to be impacted by 3.2 feet of sea level rise by the year 2100, but is located within flood zone AE, a fringe flood area that is within the flood hazard area and must comply with the special flood hazard requirements of ROH Chapter 21A. The dwelling will be elevated approximately 9 feet above mean sea level. Condition C2 of the proposed CD1 requires the applicant to acknowledge and take responsibility for the cleanup and restoration of the project site in the event of coastal hazard-related loss of property. The literature review and field inspection for the project site prepared by Kiaʻāina Archaeological Consulting recommends the preparation of an archaeological inventory survey. Archaeological studies conducted in the vicinity of the project site documented archaeological sites in iwi kupuna, or Native Hawaiian ancestral remains, to the northeast and southwest of the project site. Most of the soil on the project site area is classified as Jacques sand, which has a higher likelihood of containing subsurface archaeological sites in iwi kupuna. The applicant's agent submitted the field inspection to the State Historic Preservation Division for review, with the expectation that a survey will be required for the project site. Condition E of the proposed CD1 includes conditions requiring the applicant to prepare and submit to the division an archaeological inventory survey and to implement all mitigation protocols approved or otherwise required by the division. The applicant proposes importing approximately 534 cubic yards of structural fill material for the project's perimeter wall, column footings, concrete slabs, and utility infrastructure. No importation of soil fill material is proposed. Since structural fill material may contain invasive pathogens, pests, or plants. The proposed CD1 includes condition G, which requires the applicant to comply with certain protocols to minimize the spread of invasive species. Joining us in the chamber is Jim Hayes from Planning Solutions, who will be providing a brief presentation for your information. The presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 543, 2025.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the review of the project. And people can see here that it's in the Kahala area in a R5 zoning district, not right on the shoreline, but on the Makai side of Kahala Avenue. Hasn't been developed in a while. This is an aerial photograph from 2022. It was previously developed for single-family house use. Since this photo was taken, the site's been cleared in preparation for the development of this proposal. Here showing the shoreline hazard areas. The site is Mauka of all the shoreline hazard areas. This shows the layout of the proposed development, which is on the Mauka side or the Kahala Avenue side of the site. And there was mention of the Kamehameha Schools own right-of-way, or it's a parcel that's used as a shoreline access. But I will point out that when you look at the aerial photographs here, all of the residential uses bordering that Kamehameha Schools parcel use that parcel for accessing their residences. And our client is in the process of obtaining and obtaining the proof of access to comply with the condition of the SMA permit. So we anticipate that that'll be available soon. But that's the end of my presentation. If anyone has any questions, happy to answer. Thank you.
Members, are there any questions for the agent? Before I call up the administration, I would like to take public testimony, proceeding first with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Is there any remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
For the administration, again, we have Director Don Takeuchi Apuna.
Thank you, Chair. We're supportive of the proposed CD1 for this reso.
Members, are there any questions for the director or any further discussion? Seeing none, the chair recommends that Resolution 25-260 be amended to the posted CD1. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 25-260 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving to agenda item number 6 for action, Resolution 25-269. The resolution grants a special management area major permit to the Bank of Hawaii to allow for the demolition of existing commercial building, construction of a new 2-story bank branch facility. That includes commercial office space and installation of landscaping on an approximately 10,920 square foot non-shoreline lot, Zone B2 Community Business District, located at 6650 Kalanianaʻole Highway in Hawaii Kai, and identified as tax map key 39017-040. We have posted on the agenda a CD1 version of the resolution, which I submitted. For your information, a summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. I would like to propose verbal amendments in response to requests from the applicant. First, in the resolution title and first whereas clause, delete the word office so that reference is to commercial space. The project includes restaurant space. Second, amend condition D4 to add the word exterior so that it reads, all exterior project site work and construction activities are limited to daylight hours. According to the applicant, some interior work is performed during the nighttime hours. Finally, in the be it finally resolved clause, list the name of the contact person at the Bank of Hawaii as Natalie Fogel. The project site consists of a portion of 6 jointly developing zoning lots totaling approximately 1,194,850 square feet, an area that comprised the Hawaii Kai Town Center and identified as tax map key 39017, 011, 016, 034, 040, 041, and 042. Under a 1989 conditional use permit that allowed for joint development, the 6 parcels are considered as one zoning lot for development purposes. The project site is not a shoreline lot, but the project is a commercial project and therefore requires a special management area major permit. The project site is located Mauka of Kalanianaʻole Highway, 153 feet from the presumed shoreline, which is hardened by a seawall. Approximately 10% of the project site along Kalanianaʻole Highway will be impacted by 3.2 feet of sea level rise by the year 2100, but the project building is outside of the 3.2 foot sea level rise exposure area. The project site is located within flood zone E, a fringe flood area that is within the flood hazard area and requires compliance with the special flood hazard requirements of ROH Chapter 21A. The dwelling will be elevated approximately 9 feet above mean sea level. Condition B2 of the proposed CD1 requires the applicant to acknowledge and take responsibility for the cleanup and restoration of the project site in the event of coastal hazard-related loss of property. An environmental assessment was prepared for the project, and the Department of Planning and Permitting issued a finding of no significant impact on March 23, 2025. An archaeological literature review and field inspection for the project site was conducted by ASM affiliates. No above-ground archaeological or historic resources were identified. Condition C of the proposed CD1 includes the standard stop work requirement in the event unknown archaeological resources or historic properties are discovered during construction. Project site work includes grading of approximately 0.17 acres and disturbing a total of 0.35 acres. Existing landscaping will be removed and replaced. Project landscaping will focus on native and Polynesian introduced plants. The existing Bermuda grass lawn will be replaced with different grass species to improve the appearance of the lawn and minimize insect issues. While no importation of soil or structural fill is proposed, since new landscaping materials may contain invasive pathogens, pests, or plants, The proposed CD1 includes Condition E, which requires the applicant to comply with certain protocols to minimize the spread of invasive species. Joining us in the chamber is Greg Nakai from PBR Hawaii and Associates, Inc., who will be providing a brief presentation. For your information, the presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 544-2025.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. The applicant is Bank of Hawaii, and the project site is located in the Hawaii Town Center. The tax map key is identified as 3-917 parcel 40, which is a part of the greater Hawaii Town Center property. It's located entirely within the SMA. The topography is relatively flat, with the footprint at an elevation of approximately 7 feet above mean sea level. The landowner is Bishop Trust Estate. Project area is approximately 1/4 acre, and the existing uses is a standalone restaurant building, formerly the Outback Steakhouse, and more recently the Scratch Kitchen Hawaii Kai location. The zoning district is B2, and the project will involve the demolition of existing standalone restaurant building and a replacement with a new Bank of Hawaii branch bank building of smaller ground floor footprint. It will be a two-story design with the ground floor composed of a bank branch, restaurant or retail, and lanai, and the second floor office space and lanai. Post-construction, there'll be no reduction in the number of existing parking stalls. Here's the site plan. As you can see, the first floor will have the bank branch on the left, and on the right is the potential retail or restaurant space. Second floor with office spaces and lanai. The project is designed to be resource efficient and regionally relevant, highlighting the maritime influence on the community. Here is a building elevation with the Makai facing part of the building. This is the Mauka facing building elevation. The side elevation facing Roy's, I believe, and side elevation facing Cocoa Head. The initial construction estimate is $5 million, and the anticipated start of construction is upon approval of the SMA permit, and the estimated construction duration is 10 months. Presentation is made to the neighborhood board in April of 2024. No action is taken by the neighborhood board, and a public hearing was held on July 25th of this year. A draft EA was published in December 2024, and the final EA with the FONSI was published in March of this year. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Members, are there any questions? Before I call up the administration, I would like to take public testimony, proceeding first with in-person testimony in the chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Is there anyone else in the chamber who would like to testify? Seeing none, proceeding with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers?
Chair, we have one standing by.
I see, who is the, Mr. Dempsey? Please proceed.
Hi, yes, I'm Ty Dempsey. I'm the civil engineer consultant for the project. I was just available if there's any questions.
Members, are there any questions? Thank you. We have a Robert Domingo who signed up to testify. Clerks, is Mr. Domingo on?
Chair, no.
Is there anyone else who would like to testify on this item? Please raise the hand button. Seeing none. For the department, we have Don Takeuchi Apuna.
Thank you, Chair. We're supportive of the proposed CD1 for this SMA.
Members, are there any questions for the director, or are there any questions in general for further discussion? Seeing none, the chair recommends that Resolution 25-269 be amended to the posted CD1 is further amended as we discuss to first, in the resolution title and first whereas clause, delete the word office so that the reference is to commercial space. Second, amend condition D4 to read all exterior project site work and construction activities are limited to daylight hours. And third, in the be it finally resolved clause, list the name of the contact person in the Bank of Hawaii as Natalie Fogel. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to CD1. The chair then recommends that resolution 25-269 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving on to agenda item number 7 for action, resolution 25-261. This resolution amends resolution 18245 CD1 FD1 as amended by resolution 25-115 CD1 and further amended by resolution 25-253 CD1 to further extend the deadline to obtain a development permit for a rural community commercial center and associated improvements in Pupukea, Oahu. Members, we have posted on the agenda a CD1 version of the resolution, which I submitted. For your information, a summary is listed on the agenda. On November 14th, 2018, by adoption of Resolution 1824 CD1 FD1, the Council approved a special management area major permit proposed by Hana Pohaku LLC, the Sullivan Family Limited Partnership, and the Maurice and Joanna Sullivan Family Foundation to allow for the development of a rural community commercial center, outdoor gathering eating areas, 2 parking lots with 126 vehicles parking spaces, a new individual wastewater system, low-impact development controls to manage drainage, and associated improvements. Let's see. On approximately 4.58 acres of land, Zone B1 Neighborhood Business District, located at 59706, 59712, and 59720 Kamehameha Highway in Pupukea, and identified as tax map keys 59011, 016, 068, 069, and 070. Condition M of Resolution 18245 CD1 FD1 required that a development permit for the project be obtained within 2 years after the effective date of the SMA major permit, resulting in a deadline of November 14th, 2020. Condition M allows the Director of Planning and Permitting to extend this period if the applicant demonstrates good cause, but the period may not be extended beyond 1 year from the initial deadline without council approval. The Director approved a 1-year extension of the deadline, resulting in a new deadline on November 14th, 2021. On June 31st, 2021, by adoption of Resolution 21-115 CD1, the Council approved a further 2-year extension of the deadline, resulting in a new deadline on November 14th, 2023. On November 1st, 2023, by adoption of Resolution 21-253 CD1, the Council approved a further 2-year extension of the deadline, resulting in a new deadline of November 14th, 2025. The applicant now requests a further 2-year extension of the November 14th, 2025 deadline, which if approved, will result in a new deadline on November 14th, 2027. The applicant is currently in negotiations for the city to purchase parcels 68, 69, and 70 for the development of a hub for first responders to conduct operations and coordinate their efforts. Excluded from the negotiations is parcel 16, which is the Foodland Farms parcel. As negotiations continue pending a final agreement on the sale of the parcels to the city, the applicant has put its development activities on hold, but wishes to retain its special management area major permit entitlements under Resolution 1820-245 CD1 FD1. The city is actively pursuing the purchase of the parcels as evidenced by the Council's adoption of Resolution 25-81 on April 16, 2025, which added a government building symbol in the vicinity of the parcels on the public infrastructure map for the North Shore Sustainable Communities Plan area. The addition of the PIM symbol allowed the Council to appropriate $26 million for land acquisition for the North Shore Ocean Safety Station and Ambulance Unit Facility in the city's fiscal year 2026 Executive Capital Budget and Program, which was enacted as Ordinance 25-39 on June 24, 2025. The department's report indicates a 2-year extension of the deadline to obtain a development permit for the project is reasonable because the applicant has demonstrated progress in moving forward with the project, completed all of the requirements under Resolution 18245 CD1 FD1, and in lieu of pursuing an expedited development and construction schedule to meet the deadline to obtain a development permit for the project, is continuing to negotiate in good faith with the city and the city's efforts to purchase parcels 68, 69, and 70. Before I call up the administration, I would like to take public testimony. Proceeding first with in-person testimony in the chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Is there anyone else in the council chamber who would like to testify? Please come forward to the podium and begin by stating your name. Seeing none, proceeding on with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers?
Chair, we have one standing by.
Good morning, Denise. Denise Antolini.
Good morning, Chair Kiaʻāina and members of the Zoning and Planning Committee. My name is Denise Antolini. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Save Sharks Cove Alliance. We submitted testimony with comments. I understand there's been a change in some position, which I will defer to the chair and others to present. But 3 quick points. 1, big mahalo to the council for supporting the budget for this acquisition, to the mayor for making it happen, and to his team that's working hard on the negotiations. And a big mahalo to the landowner. And I know the attorneys and representatives of the landowner are sitting there in council. We want to thank them for engaging in good faith negotiations. It's a big change, and we really appreciate it. Second, because of that cooperation, we are really confident that this can be done soon and should be done soon. The last point I want to make is urgency. Just last weekend, there were 25 rescues in our area of ocean safety. There are lives at stake, and I think we're all in alignment to move this forward as best we can as soon as possible. Mahalo.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Members, do we have any questions for the testifier? Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. And just briefly, mahalo, Ms. Antolini, for providing your testimony. I was just curious if you could walk me through, because I know we'll be looking and hearing from DPP, possibly DHLM, and then, of course, Chair will be having discussions. So to the extent that there's discussion about maintaining the 2-year extension because of a need to ensure that the full acquisition occurs, could you maybe share a little bit of insight about any thoughts you have on that?
I apologize. That was directed at me, council member.
It was. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, sorry.
I can repeat it.
No, I got it. Thank you so much. It's just hard sometimes on Zoom. I really appreciate that. So my understanding, and I think the mayor's team is obviously the right team to ask, is that negotiations are proceeding, that an appraisal is in progress. This particular property does have a history of environmental impact statements that have already been done for various projects. There is a lot of information that the developer and prior owners have provided about this property. So we're quite confident that a lot is known about the property and that it should move forward fairly quickly. So I know there's steps to real estate negotiations, but I feel like all the steps are in place. The reason that in our testimony we explain that we support a shorter timeframe is really 2 things. 1, to make sure that the community stays in support of this process and is not, I would say, rattled by a longer extension. And the second one is just the urgency. It really is a life or death situation, and I know we all can get behind a quicker timeframe. And I imagine the landowner would like that too. Mahalo.
Thank you. Appreciate that insight. Thank you, Chair.
Denise, I have a question. What is the harm with the 2-year extension? I just explained how many times it had to come before the council. And what is the harm with providing the greatest flexibility to just have the 2 years? And if you get it done within 6 months or a year, then good. But what is the harm? Because I don't
Right.
want to see this SMA again.
I would agree with you. The harm is basically, and the way I'm going to reframe that is community concerns about this languishing. And so in the community view, it's everyone is better off by putting a time frame on it. And let me just add that the community views this project in the context of prior extensions. This would be the 4th extension. So what we don't want, honestly, is for people in the community to get concerned and try to derail it and be critical and interfere with the negotiations. So strategically, this really is the best way to go in our view.
Members, any other questions for the testifier? Okay, let's call up the administration. Don Takeuchi-Apuna for the department.
Thank you, Chair. We are supportive of the proposed CD1 and the 2-year extension. So from what we understand, because we're in negotiations for the purchase of these parcels, I think it's in good faith that we ask for 2 years so that the negotiations and everything that needs to follow up to full close on those purchases happens, and we don't know if that will take, a year in itself. And even after that, then all the other process needs to happen on the city's behalf if we're successful as far as EAs, et cetera, to move forward. So I think it makes sense to have that flexibility and to move forward in that way. I don't think that if you make it 1 year, somehow things will be faster, or 2 years will lag. I think that the process, as we understand it, will continue, and it gives us that, ability to move forward without having to come back. But 2 years is certainly more reasonable than 1 in order to get all of this done in closing the transaction and moving forward under the SMA.
And how do you reconcile what you're just stating with the Department of Housing and Land Management? Did anyone from that department, I see the deputy, did the deputy want to opine on this?
Perhaps. I think that they said at least a year, but I mean, they can speak to the transaction, but I think that might be a year in itself, and everything else that must happen would probably be more than a year.
So given that they submitted a formal testimony here, I would like to call up the deputy, because I want to make sure that we understand, and if we're on the same page, then maybe this could have been avoided if there were some discussions on this before crafting this statement.
Hi, good morning, Chair Kiaʻāina and members of the Committee on Zoning and Planning. We submitted testimony asking for a minimum of 1 year, but we were supportive of the CD1.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions for the Department of Housing and Land Management? Any questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, Councilmember Wire.
Thank you. So just to kind of walk through this again, so you're saying DHLM is supportive of both a 1 year and a 2 year?
So the Department of Housing and Land Management submitted testimony kind of outlining the acquisition process, noting that in many cases it can exceed 1 year. So at minimum, we're asking for a 1 year extension so that we have time to procure, review, and complete the due diligence to support our land acquisition.
Okay, so when did the acquisition process start?
So we've been evaluating this acquisition for several months. The threshold issue is the appraisal and what price at which we'll acquire the property. So that's the stage that we are in currently.
Okay, so a few months, I'm assuming shortly after July 1st when the fiscal year started. So you're saying it could take about a year for the acquisition. DHLM is handling the acquisition, and in your written testimony, you had signaled that you folks would at least be open to 1 year.
Yes, at a minimum 1 year.
Minimum 1 year, knowing the community asked for 3 to 6 months. As a department doing the acquisition for the parcel, you're saying a minimum 1 year would be needed.
Correct.
Okay, and then that's what the community is asking for based on your understanding is a shorter.
What I understood from the written testimony submitted by the Save Sharks Cove Alliance, I understand that there's more urgency. And so
Yeah.
we appreciate that, but also wanted to notify the council that we have processes to support a land acquisition, particularly of this volume.
Okay, have you received any opposition from the landowner to a 1-year extension?
No.
Okay, mahalo. Thank you, Chair.
Members, are there any other questions? Councilmember Tupola.
Aloha, Deputy. So in the penultimate paragraph, you guys do say that you request a 1-year extension, but then in the final paragraph, you say, based on prior land transactions of similar scope, the HLM believes that a 1-year extension is reasonable and a realistic timeframe. So it's just confusing. I think if anything, we're just trying to all be on the same page about this because 2 years is going to allow the flexibility and 1 year is the minimum. So you're saying the minimum, but then you're saying, but we're also thinking we can get it done within 1 year. So I think just prior to these hearings between DPP and your department, you guys should just reconcile what would be best so that we can move together as a unit, because I think everything is working well together. And this is, I don't think, a necessary disagreement, because I think we can all agree that with 2 years, we are hitting a 1 year minimum. Correct?
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Councilmember Wire, I would say that with regard to any concerns that may arise, the fact that we all know what is going on here, and the fact that you got the PIM symbol and we got $26 million set aside for this, there should be no concern. We have a letter here committing the administration to the acquisition of this property. So I'm going to make my recommendations if there's going to be no further discussion.
There is discussion.
Would you like to go ahead?
Yes, please, Chair. And just briefly, totally respect, what you just stated, because I do agree with that. I think the concern from the community side, right, is mentioned this is a discretionary permit that has received multiple extensions over the years with large-scale opposition from the community. At this juncture, I think starting in January, the mayor had indicated, or whenever the state of the city was, I could be wrong about the date, but early on in last fiscal year, right, there's discussion about beginning this process. And I think the landowner in good faith, the city in good faith, the community in good faith have all participated in those discussions. And so I do applaud all of those stakeholders. I just wanted to note that we do understand that outside of that, there are a lot of underlying issues. There's litigation and settlement agreements regarding this particular parcel and the uses on the property. We know that the request for the release of funds happened very early on in this fiscal year, which of course we know started July 1st. We know at most appraisals take 6 weeks. I've seen them come in much quicker, 4 weeks, I think, at times, but understanding that this appraisal took 6 weeks and just came in. I think the community has concerns at the timing and how things are progressing. Conversations I've had with the landowner last year indicating, appreciate their good faith engagement, but there can't be a guarantee of an extension because this is a discretionary permit. And so I think from the community's perspective and the testimony that came in today and the discussion that happened over the past couple weeks, and do want to thank DHLM Director and DPP for their work, because I think that the testimony coming in was through multiple conversations with community and then different departments and different admin, and so it was evolving, and appreciate extremely Chair's willingness to entertain the discussion, so I do welcome that. But just wanted to at least share that I think the 1 year extension that was discussed prior today, without even saying it was required or needed or, morally what's needed, was arrived at through good faith discussion with all of the parties involved. And so I think just my concern going into the next council meeting is having that in mind, understanding I'm not a voting member on zoning committee, but that the community has noted that they want the acquisition to proceed as quickly as possible. And I would assume the landowner does as well as DHLM and DPP. And I think that's largely in part due to the deaths we've seen and the need for first responder services. So just wanted to share that and really mahalo everyone involved, because I know a lot of work went in, but just to express where the disappointment and frustration is coming from. So thank you, Chair.
Greatly appreciate. Any other, Vice Chair Waters?
Just want to point out that your calendar today, half of it is SMA permits. So I'll support 2 years.
Thank you. I'm all about due diligence efforts, and just to let everybody know, first of all, I applaud the administration, Department of Housing and Land Management, because you're set up to be able to do this as expeditiously as possible. But I know due diligence because I'm in the throes of due diligence for city-owned property in Kailua for Hawaiian Homelands Development, and not only have they not finished their due diligence, it takes a while. After the due diligence efforts are done, then they're going to have to work with the Department of Hawaiian Homelands on the feasibility on whether or not we should transfer it. So I'm just saying any construction project is very difficult, and I'd rather give the greater latitude to the negotiators to have that time to conduct the appropriate due diligence necessary. But thank you, Councilmember Wire, for advocating for your community. The chair recommends that Resolution 25-261 be amended to the posted CD1. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 25-261 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving to our final agenda item, number 8 for action, Resolution 25-288. This resolution amends Resolution 18-248 CD1 FD1 to modify the affordable housing requirements for the Sky Ala Moana Interim Plan Development Transit Project. By adoption of Resolution 18-248 CD1 FD1, the Council approved the conceptual plan for an interim plan development transit project proposed by Avalon Group LLC to redevelop 70,000 square feet of land zone BMX3 Community Business Mixed-Use District with a mixed-use condominium hotel, residential and commercial project located at 1388, 1400, and 1418 Kapiolani Boulevard, and identified as tax map keys 23016, 003, 004, and 008. The project is required to provide a total of 84 dwelling units in the project as affordable for-sale units. Under the affordable housing requirements of ROH Chapter 29, the developer elected to provide 10% of the total project dwelling units, equal to 42 units, as for-sale affordable units with an affordability period of 30 years. Initially, 21 units were required to be offered to households earning 120% or below of the area median income, and 21 units were required to be offered to households earning 100% or below of the AMI. The developer is also required to provide 42 for-sale affordable community benefit units to offset project height and density bonuses with an affordability period of 30 years. Initially, all 42 of these community benefit units were required to be offered for sale to households earning 120% or below of the AMI. Both the affordable housing units and the community benefits units were subject to marketing periods. As the marketing periods progressed, the affordable housing units could be offered to higher income household income groups not to exceed households earning 140% of the AMI, but at prices affordable to households earning the percentage of the AMI originally required. As the marketing periods progressed, the affordability period for the community benefit units was reduced, but could not be less than 10 years. All marketing periods have expired, and currently 38 affordable housing units, 30 studio units, and 8 two-bedroom units remain unsold, all of which must be sold to households earning 140% of the AMI at prices affordable to households earning the percentage of AMI originally required for an affordability period of 30 years. 24 community benefit units which is 23 studios and 1 two-bedroom unit, remain unsold, all of which must be sold to households earning 120% of the AMI for an affordable period of 10 years. Beginning on May 8, 2024, the Director of Planning and Permitting temporarily allowed the developer to rent unsold affordable housing units and community benefit units to households earning 100% or below of the AMI, but this ability to rent unsold units will expire on December 31st, 2027. The developer now requests, and the resolution would allow, the rental of unsold affordable housing units and community benefit units to households earning 80% or below of the AMI unless and until the units are sold under the same terms applicable to the units after expiration of the last marketing periods. For various reasons, buyers have not come forward to purchase the units. I've introduced this resolution because, considering our housing crisis, I believe it is unacceptable to have newly constructed affordable units remain vacant when they are ready to be occupied. Joining us in the council chamber is Spencer Lee from JL Capital, who will be providing a brief presentation. For your information, the presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 549-2025.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and council members. My name is Spencer Lee. I represent the developer. This bill will allow us to rent unsold affordable units to 80% AMI renters in the Sky Ala Moana Flats. Let's see, next slide. So the Sky Ala Moana, it represents a significant commitment to Honolulu's housing needs. The original resolution that it was approved under allowed us to build 1,250,000 square feet of mixed-use development serving diverse community needs. Part of that resolution mandated affordable housing units to be built, the specific terms and conditions of which they could be sold. So as mentioned, we had to build 84 affordable units. 42 of them were ordinance units. 42 of them were community benefit units. And let's go ahead and see how sales have gone so far. Affordable units for sale dutifully began in August of 2022. We received our temporary certificate of occupancy in August of 23. Unfortunately, during that time, we had very high interest rates and market conditions slowed down, which caused lower and slower anticipated sales. Since then, we have offered buyers incentives to facilitate and encourage sales. We do have unsold inventory left, and we do appreciate and thank DPP for granting us the permission to temporarily rent unsold units to 100% AMI renters through December 31st, 2027. Of the 42 ordinance units, we've sold 4 of them. We have since rented out 38 of them. For the community benefit units, we have sold 21 of them. We are renting out 16 of them, and we have 5 that are currently vacant. So we do ask for your support in this measure because allowing the units to be rented out until they are sold will prevent currently 54 renters to be displaced at the end of December 31st, 2027. In addition, we're asking for these rental units to be rented out to folks at 80% AMI, which is lower than the current 140 and 120% AMI caps if they were sold. We are also pointing out that the period of time that the units are rented to affordable buyers will not diminish the current 30-year and 10-year affordable period. So after the units are sold, the units will still have to meet the 30-year and 10-year affordability period. And we believe that this is a flexible approach that aligns with Honolulu's commitment to sustainable affordable housing. It adapts to real-world market conditions. Thank you for your time, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a couple of questions just to make sure, because I'm looking at the ordinance versus the community benefit. Is the 80 AMI going to apply to both or just the ordinance?
It would apply to both ordinance and community benefit units.
Okay, and are you going to give priority to people who are currently renting?
Priority for sale or?
Yes. If this measure were to move forward?
Yes, I mean, we do offer the units for sale to the affordable renters, and yeah, we do anticipate continuing to do that.
Okay, and should some, I'm assuming you have an agreement in place, so while they are renting, before they buy it, when is the 30-year mortgage going to trigger? I mean, are you going to give them credit for the years, say that they don't have all the money for a down payment? Are you going to count their 10 years of renting as part of their purchase price?
We haven't discussed doing that. It's something that we can consider. I do want to point out that the lease itself is a lease to rent as opposed to a lease for purchase, like a rent to purchase structure. So currently, no. If you're saying, will the rent be applied toward the purchase price?
Not the retroactive rent, but when they sign an agreement with you, will the rent be able to be applied? Because I know the Department of Hawaiian Homelands has a rent to own, and it does matter. And a lot of these individuals don't have enough money for the down payment, but they're paying good rent. And so shouldn't they be allowed to apply for, have that money applied to the, like perhaps maybe be deducted from the for sale price, even if they have to sign a 30-year agreement?
You know, Chair, I think that's something that we can definitely look into. It would be a new structure that we haven't done yet, but definitely something we can consider.
Yeah. Okay. Councilmember Tupola.
Yeah, I think in a different bill, we should consider that because as you can see here, you guys have only sold 4 of the 30-year as opposed to the 21 of the 10-year, meaning that there is more people interested in a shorter amount of time. I just can't imagine that this is going to change drastically over the next 10 or 20 years, that all of a sudden people are going to want to live in the same place for 30 years and not have the ability to expand or to grow their family or to take advantage of opportunity to live in an area where they might enjoy their kids going to a school, et cetera. So again, in a different bill, what would you suggest as far as this, how to solve this 30-year qualification? Is it to build it into the rent so that as people are extending 5-10 years of rent that they roll it into the 30, or to change it? What is your thoughts?
Yeah, I do think that there's a lot of parts of the existing affordable housing rules that could be amended. I think that is one option. I do think that you're right. Just broadly speaking, 30 years when it comes to a for sale, unit is quite long, and I've experienced it firsthand that buyers are just not interested in a period that long. Personally, I've seen hundreds of people, and really 10 years is kind of the most people can stomach. If you look at HHFDC and HCDA, they're capped at 10 years as well. So I think that there is some precedent to that.
Chair, can I ask the follow-up question too?
Absolutely.
Director, can I ask you the same question? Thank you, Spencer. I appreciate it.
Oh, she hasn't come up yet, but you can wait. Maybe you want to wait?
Sure.
Yeah. Member Cordero.
Thank you, Chair. Just piggybacking on the topic, and you mentioned the rent to purchase. So what would it take to move the program to become a rent to purchase program?
It's still a little fuzzy to me if it's a rent to own program. If a initial tenant / buyer were to enter into that agreement with us, would the 10-year or 30-year clock start? Because the transfer of the property will not have happened yet. So I think that as the resolution, as all the paperwork states, the reduction of the 10 or 30-year clock doesn't happen until the transfer. So it's still unclear to me if that kind of structure would work.
Okay, and have you been able to see that implemented in any other project?
No, as far as I know,
But doesn't mean it can't be done, right? And if depending on what the clause or conditions are with the contract and the renters when they do sign their lease. So I guess yeah, it could be looked at. But I was just wondering how it would change the affordability. Like whether would it still then be at 80% AMI? I guess that's something to look at.
Yeah.
Further, as Vice Chair Tapola mentioned.
Yeah, no, I do appreciate and in favor of the idea of rent to own, but the current regulations just don't align with, with those terms of 10 and 30 years again. So, but yeah, broadly speaking, I think it's good.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? Chair Waters.
Thank you. Good morning. I really appreciate your slide deck and your candid opinion on this. So I just want to walk through this real quick though. So Ordinance 18-10 in Chapter 29 requires that you either do 10%, 20%, or 30% affordable, right? The developer gets to choose the amount of affordables, but it determines how long they have to remain affordable, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
So in this case, the developer chose to do 10% affordable, which amounts to 42 units, correct?
Yes.
And because of that, they have to remain affordable for 30 years, right?
Yes.
Now, you could have chose 20% affordable, which means you'd have to build double the amount of affordable units pursuant to Chapter 18-10. And that would have required you to keep them affordable for 20 years, right?
I believe so. I need to have the charts in front of me, but sounds right.
Okay. And then the third option was if you build even more affordables, 30% affordables, you'd only have to keep those affordable for 10 years, right?
Right.
So in this case, the developer chose to build the least amount of affordables, 10%, but that triggers a 30-year requirement, right?
Yes.
And then on your second page, we know that you're only able to sell four of the units. Out of the 10%, which was 42, out of the 42, you can only sell 4 units. So, I mean, I'm just using reason and common sense. It looks like that 30-year requirement, as you mentioned, is a obstacle to selling these units, right? People don't want to buy a unit, have to hold on to it for 30 years. Yeah?
That's right.
So one of the things, I've already drafted a bill. I mean, you'd agree with me that that doesn't work. Like, you're not going to make the same mistake in the next building that you build, pick the 10% requirement and have it for 30 years, because you'll end up having to come back and ask the council to help out again, because that's pretty much what this resolution is doing. You're asking the council to forgive your previous obligation of making these units affordable units for sale, right? And allowing you to do rentals instead of for sale.
Well, a couple points there. So we did take over the project from a different developer who struck that housing agreement. So we adopted a decision that they had made. A second point is that we were the first project to go to market at a 30-year option for buyers. So it was untested for anybody. Nobody knew how the market would react. The last thing I would say is that we're not asking for any change to the 30-year affordable period. It's not a reduction request. It's merely allowing us to rent the units until and unless they are sold. And then when they are sold, the buyer will fulfill the 30-year period.
Okay, great. But I guess what I'm getting at, and I'm trying to make the point that maybe in ordinance or 18-10, we should just get rid of the option of building 10% of the units for 30 years, right? Which would only leave you with two other options. You build 20% for 20 years or 30% for 10 years, right? Because clearly on the other side, when you look at the community benefit side, right, on page 2 of your slide deck, you're able to sell 21 of those units out of the 42 required.
Yes.
So I can see a big difference, 4 versus 21. That's 4 times the amount, 5 times the amount.
Yeah. I think that you're right that we won't be choosing the option of the 30-year, at 10% ever again. I think merely striking it through doesn't exactly solve the problem because the reality is the developer at the time chose the 30-year option because they thought it was the best. Now knowing that wasn't a good option, options 1 and 2, the other 2 options, the 10 or 20-year options, they weren't feasible economically at the time. So that's why they went with the 30-year option. So I think just striking through the 30-year option doesn't exactly solve the problem that the 10 and 20 years weren't great.
Well, is it true that a lot of these units, if not all of them, are studios? I mean, if you think about it, I could see how someone wouldn't want to be stuck in a studio for 30 years, especially a young person who would typically be attracted to a studio. When you start a family, have kids, what are you going to do with a studio when you have kids? So how many of these are studios? Let's start with a 30-year requirement. Those 42. How many of the 42 there were studios?
30 of them were studios.
30? Okay. Out of the 4 that you sold, how many of those are studios?
I don't have my full graph with me here, but I don't think that any of them were.
Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yep.
I get it why the developer chose to build the smallest units affordable. They make more money, right, for the developer. But at the same time, really what we're trying to do is try to get more affordable units for more local families so that they can stay in Hawaii. But if you're going to just build studios, right, that's not really solving the problem. It helps. Every unit you build helps, but you get my point, right? Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, it could be good for kupuna though, because a studio would be fine or, yeah.
Right,
so-
but for 30 years, right, you might pass away by the time, the 30 years is up. Then what happens? I guess you could pass it on to your grandkids.
Yeah, I will add that actually a lot of the studios that we did sell were folks of that kapuna age group, and that was really just because they felt it was a great price for them to live out the rest of their time. So.
Okay, any more questions? Because we're going to move on. Oh, Councilmember DeSantis-Tam.
Chair, I want to dive in a little bit more to the differences between the 30-year ordinance units and the community benefit units. So for the ordinance units, of which 4 were sold, the AMI level has gone up because the marketing periods have expired. Of those 4 units, do you know which AMI pool they belong to?
I'm going off of memory here, but I believe that they were all at the 140% AMI, which was the final marketing period. Actually, one of the issues is that when people know that there will be additional marketing periods where either the AMI increases or the affordability period on the community benefits goes down from 30 to 20 to 10, people wait.
And then similarly with the community benefit units, of those 21, they scaled up. Where were, out of your recollection, where were those typically sold? In what AMI pool?
Yeah, actually on all of the community benefit units except for one of them, the buyers all chose to wait until it dropped from 30 to 20 to 10 and finally sold when it was in the 10-year period. The one buyer who bought while it was still a 30-year period, you know, it was a great unit. It was like our best unit, and you know, they felt that I think they were in that Kapuna age group.
And I guess what I'm trying to get at as well is we, you know, the developer negotiates with the city. This happened in 2018. Mortgage rates, the average mortgage rate at the time they were negotiating was about 4.25%. So I'm not sure if it was totally unreasonable for them to expect that folks in this AMI group could afford the unit at that time. But because of, as we all know, everything that's gone on since 2018 and where mortgage rates are now, where I think it's about 6.5%, the expectations from 2018 versus now are totally different. I also wanted to ask, if we're going to go about, maybe I'll confine this to DPP. If we get the DPP director to come up, I have a question for her.
After testimony. Is that okay? I'd like to actually conclude this portion and move on to testimony and then bring up the administration. Is that okay? Okay, so before I call up the administration, I would like to take public testimony. Proceeding first with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Is there anyone else in the chamber who would like to testify? Seeing none, proceeding with remote testimony. Do we have any remote testifiers?
Chair, we have one standing by.
Is that Angeli Melody Young?
Yes, Chair.
Please proceed.
Thank you. So I got to witness the work and coordination of Avalon's team to take the stage to lead Bill 51. So I'm in favor to modify this set of requirements to amend the project based on their knowledge of financial planning for renters and buyers and based on the results of the development. So having experienced development companies like Avalon that developed Walmart into a pickleball court and a university where there were homeless people and gangs and druggies, and now it's all families and fun students and people, knowing what to build as a strategy in communities comes from experience and not just like random projects. So I don't think things have to be super technical. So, you know, to witness a vision of integrating development designs for a TOD district with community outreach and these sessions like we're doing today, it really ensures the growth in the corridor proceed in concert with the vision and goals of each station community to boost transit ridership and enhance economic development for families while building great options for housing. So, you know, we're anticipating something that has never been done before, building a train and TOD zone, and yet we're equipped with a county strategy for island-wide housing
Thank you so
development.
much. Angela, thank you so much. Is there any more testifiers? Please raise the hand button. Seeing none, we're now going to move to the administration with Don Takeuchi-Apuna, the director of DPP.
Thank you, Chair. We are supportive of this resolution, and I'm here for any questions.
Okay, let's start with Dos Santos Tam first, and then we'll go to Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you, Chair. It was noted in the PowerPoint presentation that DPP gave them permission to temporarily rent these unsold units. What authority do you have under the ordinance to give this kind of permission?
I think there are in the rules some discretion for us to do that. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess we've gone through this a couple of different ways. It's not just this project, but there was another project, I think it was Park on Keamoku, where the debt to income ratio posed an issue for prospective renters or buyers to get into the unit. I guess buyers in that case. When we get to perhaps a future bill that redoes this, is the department open to providing a little bit more flexibility? Because as we noted, when the developer comes in to negotiate this, you know, say in 2018 versus now, 7 years later, the world's totally different, and maybe we need to grant a little bit more flexibility rather than rigidness to make housing happen.
Yes, totally agree. I think, you know, this is 6 years old policy, so we're learning and the council's learning, and we can adjust and be flexible so that we can fill these units effectively.
Councilmember Tupola?
Thank you, Chair. Not to belabor this, but just would you be willing to work with us or myself? Because I did propose some changes to this in a prior bill introduced by two of the council members here, but they were, it was suggested that we do it separately, and that was in regards to the different tiers. So you're saying you're open then to amending this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, yes.
And I would, DHLM, you know, they're housing policy experts. We would want them to be involved because they can certainly provide good expertise about what makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be great. And to the presenter's point, it was the first project that decided to venture into the 30 years. So tested, results, now we know what to do. So I think that's why when we need to pivot. So thank you, Director. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, the chair recommends that Resolution 25-288 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. I'm very proud that we have finished business within 2 hours. Thank you for the members who notified me that you were stuck in traffic, because we were able to make sure that we had a quorum to start on time. And I'm going to try to keep our zoning hearings to either 2 hours, in average 3 hours maximum. If it goes past the 3 hours, I will buy lunch for everyone. Mahalo everyone for being here today. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.